Alright, so it's week 2 of NIKKE's summer event, which means it is time to waste some pulls on another unit that I may never use. Of course, this time I'm talking about Summer Marciana, and in this video I'm going to do my best to let you know where she will be used, which teams she'll fit into, how to build her, and most importantly, if Summer Marciana is Pog or Gnaw. Now, speaking of wasting pulls, it took me about 60 pulls to get a copy of Summer Marciana, which is about the expected rate, so I can't complain. First off, we're going to talk about where you're going to use Summer Marciana, because I think it gives important context to my build recommendations. Summer Marciana is first and foremost a bossing character, and more specifically, she is an iron bossing character. This unit will see absolutely no use outside of Iron Week bossing content. Her entire kit is based around selfishly buffing her own attack and elemental damage, with zero utility at all. She must be used in burst or her damage essentially drops to 0. She has the capability to do screen-wide damage, but the damage is not impressive and it poses 2 problems. It depletes her attack buffing stacks, and she is unlikely to regain them after using them. She is a bossing unit and nothing else. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the build. The most important skill to max is going to be her skill 1. This is her main damage dealing ability, and each level will give her a significant boost to her overall damage. Skill 1 is triggered by her burst, but her burst skill isn't as important in my opinion. Her burst gives a few self buffs and a mediocre reduction to electrical enemies' defense. Investing manuals to get her burst up to 7 is a good stopping point, because you won't get much return by going to 10. So what about her skill 2? I think this is worth taking to 7, and you'll see minimal difference by taking it all the way to 10. I'm hesitant to recommend investing into skills all the way up to 10 on extremely niche characters like Summer Marciana, unless they provide a massive increase to their overall performance. But that is not the case here. I think that 10-7-7 is the most reasonable investment plan. I'd recommend getting at least element damage on every piece of gear, then I would get 2 ammo lines and 2 critical damage lines. If for some reason you want to go for 12 lines, then go for 4 times element damage, 4 times crit damage, 2 times ammo, and 2 times attack. Marciana has a ton of self-attack, but it's still a valuable line, and we're not at the levels of self-buffing where attack lines are a waste. At 100% bonus max ammo, Marciana will have enough in the magazine to fire continuously for the entire full burst duration. As for cube choice, that's really easy. Resilience. Big surprise. As for the doll, since Summer Marciana has massive self buffs to attack, that makes the stats from higher levels of dolls even better. But since this is a character you will use a few times a year, then SR5 is a good place to stop. As a final note about the build, I think that rolling for 4 lines of elemental damage is a totally reasonable place to stop, since she is such a niche unit. Any lines you can get in addition to that are just an added bonus. So, Summer Marciana is an extremely niche, Iron Week bossing character. How does she perform? For a non-pilgrim unit, not bad. One thing that is nice about Summer Marciana is her base reload speed of 1 second. This makes her a bit more flexible to be used in teams that don't stack reload speed. She reminds me a lot of Archranger Black. I don't have the resources to test a fully upgraded Summer Marciana, for I am just a lowly fish, but I can go to the shooting range, use the loaner copy of her, and extrapolate some information. And would you look at that, I can even use a loaner of Summer Cinderella to get a comparison. Now, when using them both in a pretty cookie-cutter composition, Summer Cinderella was doing about 20% more damage on average compared to Summer Marciana, which is actually not bad when you consider Summer Cinderella is hailed as the queen of iron DPS now. But this is just a baseline comparison, and that gap will grow when comparing them in their own ideal compositions with ideal overload lines. Summer Cinderella, of course, favored. I tested her with the Idol duo and the Maid duo. I think she would also work well in a Treasure Miranda composition, and she'd have no issues receiving the buffs from Miranda since Summer Marciana's attack is extremely high. So, what kind of teams do you actually use her in? As I mentioned before, she works just fine in a cookie cutter campaign style composition. Crown, some form of Burst 1 CDR, Summer Marciana, Summer Cinderella, and a flex slot. This is a good starting point, and you can even use Rappy Red Hood as the burst 1 in this team. This is a very one-size-fits-all composition, but it will be better to use Rappy Red Hood as a burst 3 against Iron Weak bosses. So in this comp, maybe consider using Rappy Red Hood instead of Summer Marciana and then using a different burst 1. But this is an option available to you. Another composition you could use is Mint, some form of burst 1 CDR, Summer Marciana, a burst 3, and Prika. Summer Marciana already has a fast reload speed, and she does like the max ammo that the Idol Duo provides, so pairing her with Mint and Prika works great. You'd probably want to slot in someone with high burst generation like Snow White, Heavy Arms, or Treasure Helm, and whatever burst 1 CDR you have available. This same lineup works exactly the same with Maid Mast and Maid Anchor replacing Mint and Prika. And finally, you can use her in the aforementioned Treasure Miranda comp, which would look something like Treasure Miranda, Summer Helm, Summer Marciana, some form of burst 3, and a flex slot. This is an iron composition with Treasure Miranda and Summer Helm, who covers several bases here as a burst 2, a CDR unit, and a very all-around great unit for Iron Weak bossing. You can slot in another burst 3, and Treasure Helm would be a great addition here for some burst generation and healing. And if you don't have Summer Helm, then you'll need to slot in another burst 2 and some form of CDR unit in your flex slot. Ideally, I think you would slot her with the Idol Duo or a Treasure Miranda composition when using this unit in solo raids, and you should save the reload buffers like the Maids and Crown for units that need it more. And with all that being said, it is with a heavy heart that I must declare Summer Marciana is not Hog, simply because she is too niche and not even the best at her role as an iron DPS. She really feels like a unit made from the same mold as Archranger Black, but even Archranger Black has more general use and won't get her stats nerfed by having too many enemies on the screen. Overall, Summer Marciana is a nice addition to a very barren selection of iron DPS units. She's flexible with team compositions, however, that doesn't change the unfortunate circumstance that she really only shines in Iron Weak bossing, and her kit actively reduces her overall strength when fighting more than 5 enemies. If you're a newer player, then she is 100% a skip. I would only grab a copy of her if you're interested in going for high ranks in Iron Weak solo raids. Anyways guys, please like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I hope this video gave you what you needed to hear if you're on the fence about pulling for her, and I hope you get the information you needed on how to play her. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!